All right, welcome back to another episode of Francis and Friends. We got myself, Coach Francis, and today we got a very special guest. If you know anything about sports in Toronto, you know we got a legend right here. We got my brother here. We got Karim Grant. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. How you been, man?
I'm good, man. Just working, busy as usual, just trying to get prepared for the season coming up. So a lot of good things happening. How's your day today, man?
You know what? It was good. It was very busy, but it got a lot done. Just preparing for a couple events this weekend, and just a lot of loose ends to tie up, but just trying to keep it moving and living the dream.
That's dope, man. That's dope. But yeah, man, for those that don't know, we'll get into it. We got ex NFL player, ex CFL player, a KD legend here. We got a lot of accolades right here. But yeah, we'll just we'll jump right into it, man. Growing up in Toronto, growing
Right.
up in Toronto, man. What were those early days like growing up in Toronto, man? What sports did you play and stuff? Was it always football?
No, man. Football came late. Football. I always tell people I never chose football. Football chose me. It was just one of those things where I just got more notoriety playing that sport than any other sport that I played. Growing up, I grew up in a single family home. I was my mother's only child, and so she raised me. And she got me involved in a lot of different things. For as far as I can remember, I remember swimming, karate, guitar lessons, piano lessons, soccer, you name it. She had me involved in it, just to keep me well rounded and I guess out of trouble. And it's just kind of like a paid babysitting service for her as well, I guess, right? To keep me
I hear that.
out of
Yeah,
her hair. Right. So
yeah.
it was cool though. It's a good times. We didn't have a lot, but whatever she had, she gave to me. I didn't have any brothers or sisters to share anything with. I was an only child for a good portion of my life. So I didn't really have much people to share things with. So everything that, any excess funds that she had, she kind of gave to me, and so which was cool. And she, I was a bit of a spoiled child, but I was very humble.
I'm very humble. Yeah, that's dope, man. I didn't have that experience being the only child, man. I got little sisters, so I had to share
Yeah.
everything. I had to share everything. Okay, so you said you did a lot of stuff, swimming, you did a lot of stuff. So when was your introduction to football, and how did that kind of take place?
So for me, it's a good question. Football, I never really understood football growing up. It was just one of those really complex sports that I knew that was really popular, but I was really into basketball. I was into soccer. I was into everything but football. I could never understand why that small little running back would run into a crowd and not just run around the crowd. It just never made sense to me until I got to high school, and that's where it all came to fruition to me, where I understood the game and I figured things out, and that was mainly because a lot of my friends were involved in the sport, and I was just like, man, if they're doing it, they're having fun, they're having a good time, I'm going to do it too. So I just started playing simply because of the fact that my friends were playing.
Mm,
And I remember my first game. I didn't understand anything about the game, and right, I was sitting there, um, you know, on the sideline. Not my first game. I think it was like my first season, and I was sitting on the sideline waiting for my turn to get in, and the coach says, "Okay, Karim, it's your turn to go in now." I'm like, "Okay." Now, me, I'm not even knowing if I'm on defense or offense, but
yeah.
he did put me on defense, and I'm there. Okay, I'm like, wow, this is great, man. Everything's moving so fast, and and I'm looking, like, look at that quarterback throw that ball, and look, ooh, right over my head, and right behind me, a guy caught the ball and caught a touchdown, and he's like, "Colonel, that was your man." I was like, "Well, I didn't know that." So it was just a whole incredible revelation of a new sport for me. So at that day, I think I devoted myself to learning the game, understanding the game, and really trying to do my best to become a better player.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think everyone has kind of that experience of kind of being thrown in the fire, so to speak.
Right.
And Yeah, man. Okay, so had your got your feet wet a little bit.
Right.
So from that point, like when did you know that you had a chance to play post secondary?
You know what? At that time, I was still playing soccer in high school. I was trying out for the basketball team. I had made it. So football was just like more of a pastime, just because it was leading up to the beginning of basketball season. So I was like, okay, I'll do this just to, get in shape for basketball
Yeah.
kind of thing. And, it was something to do. But after a while, I started realizing that I was getting better and better every year at football as opposed to getting better and better every year at basketball. I wasn't bad. I wasn't terrible at basketball. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wasn't as good as I was in football. And then I had a growth spurt one year. I grew like 5 or 6 inches, I think, in my grade 10 or 11 year. And, I just became a gangly, long, athletic type of athlete, who had a background in soccer as well as basketball. And so I could really move, and I really knew how to use my body to enforce my physical will on people sometimes. So it really helped out. So I think it was my grade 11 year where I was able to say, you know what, I think this is the sport that's going to drive me to the next level.
Talking to people who are older, like
Hmm.
25, 30 and plus, like I keep hearing the same story of people playing multiple sports,
Right.
and like for myself, like it's always like volleyball season, then that like it was like track, volleyball, then basketball, right? And then
Yeah.
you look at kids now growing up, it's like they're so singular in what they're doing. It's like, well, I'm playing basketball. I'm only playing basketball for the whole year. It's like athletes and kids now they don't get those secondary and third skills of like, okay, playing soccer, now work on my footwork, doing track, working on my conditioning, volleyball, working on my jumping and my landing. It's like they don't learn these skills, and then when they're going playing AAU for however much games, now their body's breaking down because their body doesn't have the secondary skills to kind of like, like their footwork and their balance and their
Absolutely.
landing and all that stuff. So I find it very interesting to hear the difference from like,
Yeah, for me, totally, it was about not being bored. I mean, I,
yeah,
I, I utterly detested high school, and my whole thing was the only good thing about high school was the women, well, at that time the girls, and sports.
sports, yeah.
I hated everything else about high school. I just hated the whole thing, the whole concept of it.
Mm-hmm.
I hated taking courses that I didn't like. I
Like, yeah,
hated taking courses that I would never use again in life, and it just
facts.
didn't make sense. Sports made sense to me. So if I could play as many sports as I could, that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my career in high
Yeah,
school.
yeah,
So I remember like going to my first. We had this guy, this recruiter named Ron Diaz, and he was a gentleman that would set up camps with some of the biggest Division I schools in the U.S. and some at that time they were called CIAU.
Mhm.
I'm dating myself, but and then they turned into CIS, and now they're called U Sports. But
yeah,
at that time it was CIAU, so they would bring a lot of those guys out. And I remember the first person that ever spoke to me was a gentleman by the name of Charlie West at the University of Syracuse, and then from there my trajectory just went sky high. I just, everybody started recruiting me. I was getting letters from all over all over North America, predominantly the U.S., just for guys wanting me to come to their school, offer me scholarships. And so it was an incredible feeling. And I was like, man, I never got this notoriety for any other sport. But I think because I played so many different sports, it helped me to kind of, it shielded me, like you said, from injury. It also helped me to understand competition and the levels of competition. So it really helped me to get to that next level.
yeah. That's crazy because like the next question I had for you was, what was your recruitment process like? So like, what was that process like for your recruitment? You talked about you having D1 schools, and how did you ultimately land at Acadia?
Yeah, it's a great question. Everybody always asks the same question. I'll be honest with you. As much as I had a lot of Canadian schools recruiting me, there wasn't that many. There was only about a handful. Everybody and their mother and their athletic director thought I was going to D1 100%. You know, I had schools like Wake Forest. I had schools like Syracuse University. I had schools like UConn. All any you name it, the school was. I had a letter coming from them every. Ohio State. That was. I thought I was going to Ohio State at the time. You know, that was my thing. It was either Ohio State or Syracuse or Wake Forest. Those are my top three. And everyone just said, you know what, let's stay off this guy. He's not going. He's not coming to Canadian school. He's not going to be able to come doing that. And so I was just like, man, this is great. I mean, it was an incredible time because this was before the advent of email. So I'm really dating myself right now. But we didn't get email. We got physical snail mail that came to our door. And you know, I would rush home every day just to see what letter I was getting. It was the most incredible feeling every day to get home and see a different letter from a different university begging and pleading for you to come to their school and telling you how much they wanted you. And it was just a great, surreal feeling. I think I got caught up in the whole whirlwind of it, and then I stopped going to class. So I stopped going to class, and I stopped really attending the important classes, and I stopped really focusing on what was important, which was my academics. I wasn't a terrible student, but I just needed to put more effort into being a better student. And I think that ultimately caused the demise of a lot of my scholarship opportunities. In hindsight, you know, when I talk to kids about this, and I always say, listen, I had the world in my hands, and I pretty much let it go because I didn't take care of what was necessary in the school, in the schoolroom, and in my books. So my marks were good enough for me to get into to universities in Canada, but you know, I just didn't have any. I was the only child. I had no, you know, my mom's a first generation, you know, Trinidadian mother who doesn't know too much about the recruitment process and you know, SATs and ACTs, and that year they just brought in this new thing called the what's it called? Well, it's a process where you have to get certified by the NCAA. So you not just the SATs, but
Clearinghouse.
The clearinghouse. There you go. So the clearinghouse. That was the first year they brought it in, and I didn't get cleared. I remember it was just one subject, English writing course. They didn't accept, and so they're like, "Yo, go back to school one more year, get your marks up." And I had already done 4 years, and I was just like, "Oh man, no, man. If I go back, I would seem like a failure." Right. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to try a different route. I'm going to go to what we call a CJEP in Montreal. So I went to a CJEP out there for a few months. I went there first semester, did really well, but I didn't get the attraction that I needed to go D1 anymore. So there was one school that kept on pursuing me throughout this whole process. And kept on calling me every day. And I'm like, oh, why is this guy calling me every single day? I'm not going. You're not Ohio State. You're not Syracuse. You're not Wake Forest. Stop calling me. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Yeah. And it was, you know, this gentleman by the name of Heath Weir who's now the head coach of Huron Heights, one of the top schools top high schools in Canada right now. And he had recruited me to come to Acadia. You know, and I was like, you know, at that point, you know, I was facing a lot, going through a lot. I had just, you know, I was a teenage father at that time. I had just had my son, and I was just like, man, I got to get my life together, and I got to figure something out real quick. And you know, Acadia was willing to help me out with some funding, and you know, and help me out. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna go out there and just, you know, make a name for myself. Right. And I just, this phrase just stuck in my head. It's not where you're at, it's what you do with where you're at. Right. So that's what I stuck with.
Things happen for a reason, right? And
absolutely,
you're put in the positions you're put in for a reason. So you had your 4-year career at Acadia, and then you wanted to play pro. So like, when did you know? So you went from a kid who didn't really know the game of football,
right,
to having all these scholarships, to losing the scholarships because of academic reasons, to kind of falling into Acadia, and then now you're a kid. You're a kid at Acadia, still probably pretty fresh to the game. When did you know that you had a chance to go play pro?
I think it was in my 3rd year. At the time, We had just completed a really good season. We had gone to the AUS finals, so the Atlantic University finals, and we had lost. And so, that following year, I believe in the spring or early spring, late winter, we had a workout. A gentleman came from an NFL team. At the time, they were called the St. Louis Rams, and he was a Canadian guy. But he was also a scout, and he was just like, nobody recruits Canada at all. So I'm gonna go out to the AUS and see what's out there. So he went out to St. Mary's, and he's like, you know what? Well, I'm out here in St. Mary's. Why don't I just come to Acadia and see what's going on? I heard he got a couple of good guys out there. Let me go check it out. So he came, he checked it out. He had us run 40s in the hockey rink and do some bench presses and some squats and some vertical jumps. And I blew everything out the water, man. I think I ran like a 4.5 that day. I was benching, I was doing, and I tested really well. I had like about a 7-foot wingspan. So everything that I did test wise resonated well on their end. So, he's like, Karim, your stats and your physical attributes already put you in the top percentile of outside linebackers in the US for the NFL draft. And I'm like, what? Wow. You know what I mean? I'm at a small school in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. And I'm 6'4", about 235. And I'm just like, me? We say, yeah. I'm like, NFL? And so within weeks, I mean, every NFL team was coming to Wolfville, Nova Scotia to come see me. So my fourth year was a whirlwind. I mean, like every day it would be a different team coming to see me. New York Jets, the Giants, and you name it, they were there. And just to come see what I was doing, right? And so that was pretty phenomenal experience for me to go through. And I just, I took it in stride, but I realized that plan that I had, I said, it's not where you're at, is what you do with where you're at. Because I'm just like, listen, if they're going to videotape every game, there's a possibility that somebody sees it. And that's why I always tell kids, as long as there's film, long as there's film that shows your capabilities and what you can possibly do, it'll get into the hands of somebody, and somebody will put it into the right hands, and you will get to where you need to get to by the grace of God, right? So, so said, so done. And within my, I think I got up to being ranked the top 10 outside linebacker in North America at one point, just based on my attributes and based on my stats in school and my film. And so it was a really good experience.
That is a testament to hard work and perseverance and keep going, like a lot of times, like I know myself, like when I'm talking to athletes, like they're like, shoot, if I don't go D1, I'm gonna stop playing. If I don't get to this school, then I'm a failure, It's like, you got a chance, like, and as you said, as long as there's film, as long as you put something on the tape, you got a chance, you got a chance. So that's your testament.
Yeah. So it was, it was an incredible experience. At that point, there wasn't too many guys going from Canadian universities to, the NFL. I think years before that, a gentleman by the name of Jerome Pathon, he had played with the Indianapolis Colts. Ironically, he was from Acadia. He played a year at Acadia, and then after Acadia, he had gone to Washington State and played with the Huskies over there. And then he was able to get on with the Indianapolis Colts and had a good career. So it had been done before, but it wasn't a standard practice. And so I was just like one of the first of a few of the initial foray of Canadian university students going to the NFL.
You ended up in Atlanta. How did you end up in Atlanta, man? What was that process like? So you went from Acadia to Atlanta, Nova Scotia to Atlanta. What was that process like, man? How was
Well, I mean, it wasn't that easy. A lot happened in between that. We had this. I signed with an agent after my 4th year, and he was just like, "Man, we got to get you, ready for the NFL draft. We got to get you this, get you that." So I went to a few camps. I was training with a couple of guys. You know, this guy by the name of Brian Musso, who would play with the Jets back in the day, and he was training guys now, getting them ready. I trained with this guy Chip Smith, who was one of the lead trainers in the U.S. Just getting guys ready for the NFL draft. And so I sat through the draft both days, just waiting for my name to be called. I don't know why I sat through the first day thinking I might go first or second round, but I just, just to see what happened. I really wanted to see the guys that I was compared to, the guys that I was ranked with, how high they went. And I think at that time, this guy named it was Tommy Pauly from the Florida State University. I don't think he played too long in the NFL anyways, but I wanted to see how far these guys had gone. So I ended up waiting the last day, sitting down in my apartment at Acadia, and didn't get drafted. And so I was a bit upset. I was a bit, taken aback. I mean, I wasn't overwhelmingly surprised, but I was like, you know what? Go back to the drawing board. At least my name's in the portal, my name's in people's mouths. I had gotten calls that day, so I'm thinking, okay, it might happen. It might happen. I can't remember what team called me. I think it might have been Cleveland that called me to say, you know what, we're looking at you, just stay by your phones. We'll see what happens. And so nobody called me. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go chill out. And then I came home, and then my boys were like, yo, let's go to Atlanta, man. Let's just go have fun. Let's have a good time. That time, Atlanta was a great time. It was, Atlanta. So I had my boy OJ Santiago was down there. He was playing for the Atlanta. He had just finished playing for the Atlanta Falcons, and he was moving on to a different team. I think Oakland at that time. And we're just gonna go hang out with him and just chill out. And so I'm there chilling on his back porch one day, and I'm just like talking to my boy. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna call my agent. I'm gonna go get a workout with Atlanta. And so I called my agent. He's like, "Oh, you're in Atlanta? Perfect. Let's get you out here right now." So within 24 hours, I was working out for Atlanta. They loved me right away. And then he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna fly you out to Carolina right now too." I'm like, "Okay, let's go to Carolina." Carolina loved me too. And so now both of them wanted to sign me. They both put contracts on the table. It's like, yo, we're gonna sign you. Here's your money up front. Boom, bam, bam. Everything was working out, and I was just like, yeah, this is great. So, but Carolina had just drafted this gentleman by the name of Julius Peppers. I don't know if you ever heard of him. And they were looking at me like, yeah, like I was gonna be his position. I'm like, man, I'm not trying to go there and be nobody's backup. And he's coming out of UNC, and he was, highly touted, rookie coming into camp. So I was like, you know what? Let me go to the Atlanta Falcons, where they got a 3-4 defense. That's more my style. I can play a little bit of drop back linebacker. I can play a bit of a DN. I can rush the quarterback and do what I love doing. And Atlanta's a great place to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Carolina was quiet. It was calm. It just wasn't my style. I'm a big city kid, so I loved everything that Atlanta had to offer. And so I went there, and I ended up, going to Atlanta and playing a few games there. And I actually got a sack, so I was happy. And then they made an early exit back to the CFL.
So thinking back to that draft, who are some players that you remember going ahead of you at your position?
I really have to Google it, man. I can't even remember it. It was that long ago. It was 2001. I couldn't even remember. That's a great question, and I'm so terrible. So if you're watching this, Google it. 2001. Actually, no, the 02 draft. 02 drafts. See who got drafted in 02, and let me know. I know that I was there in Atlanta in Mike Vick's second year. Yeah, so I was playing with Mike Vick.
You were there during the hype of Mike Vick.
Yeah.
What was that like in
Mike
Atlanta?
Vick he was him. He was definitely him at that time. He was crazy. He was a lefty, a running quarterback that was accurate, and that was put some pepper on that ball. I mean, I picked him off a couple of times in practice, but I think I might have broke a thumb doing that. He was just a freak athlete, really, he was just a running back playing the quarterback position. So he was just something that you've never seen before. He's what Lamar is right now, but back then, 20 years ago. So it was an incredible time. We learned a lot from a lot of great veterans there. I wouldn't replace it for the world, man. It's just a great time.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. Mike Vick, man, like he was something special. Like he had, like I've seen all the documentaries of Mike Vick in his prime. I've seen all of that. I've seen all the highlights from him at Virginia. I've seen all of that, and
Yeah.
seeing it on film and living it must be like night and day.
Oh
Night
yeah,
and
it's a different speed. I mean, what you see on TV is cool, but in real life, it's a different speed, and you almost have to adjust your athletic mindset and how you deal with the way he approaches the game and that kind of stuff, right? So it was different, but I mean, they prepare you for it, man. Like I remember my first week at training, not even training camp, mini camp. And this wasn't even mini camp. This was like a pre-mini camp for the rookies, like all the free agents and the rookie draft picks. They came in and it was like, okay, let's go. And that was the first time that I ever said to myself, I am not cut out for it. This is the second day of mini camp. I said, I'm not cut out for this. I said, they need to send me back to Canada first thing smoking, because I was just not, it was Georgia. I don't know if you understand what the heat is like in Georgia in about May or June. It is incredibly hot. Think of some of the hottest days that there might be in Alberta in the summertime. And I know it gets hot out there.
The only thing I can think about is I was in Vegas last year during July.
Mm-hmm.
It was hot. That's the only thing I don't think I can compare it to. But I've never been in Georgia in May.
Yeah, it's a different kind of heat, and we were training. We're doing 2 days in those heats. Yeah. In that heat, it was just something that I had never seen before. So it took me some time to get used to get acclimated to the feeling of using different cardiovascular systems along with the heat that was just killing me. So I remember a lot of times walking home from practice and just my whole body just seizing up and having to be carted into the training facility in order to get IV. And that happened 2 or 3 times, and it was incredible. It was one of the most craziest experiences I've ever had. You're like, oh boy, look at Canada about to freeze up again. Look at him again. Oh my God. So they would just really get on me about like not being able to deal with the heat, because I couldn't. I'm not from that. Yeah, I was not, I wasn't cut out for it at that time. I got used to it after a while, but I mean, when the first couple of weeks, they hit me like a ton of bricks. And so, I had to get IV a couple of times. I remember, just sweating and through all my clothes and just looking at my shorts and wringing out my shorts. And it was just all sweat. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, that's not even water. That's just the sweat that's coming out of my pores, right? Yeah. And so, but they took care of me, and I had a good time and learned a lot and did a lot, man. So I like I said, wouldn't trade it for the world.
So, like, would you say that the Heat in Atlanta, was that your welcome to the NFL moment, or was it another moment where you're like, man, this is different than Nova Scotia?
You know what? My welcome to the NFL moment, like I said, came in minicamp when we were just, we had one of the best, Al. I can't remember his last name. His first name was Al, but Coach Al was an incredible strength and conditioning coach who just got you ready and prepared, had all the supplements ready for pregame, during the practice and post practice to kind of get you ready. But it was, those first couple of practices where we were doing suicides on a hill backwards, backpedaling. And I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, when do we use this in football? But anyway, I was just like, let's do it. I mean, I'm up against like, some $1 million draft picks, and I'm just like, I can't punk out now.
Yeah,
I got to
yeah.
make sure I stake my claim here, and I make sure I put some work in here so I can make this team. So that was my focus.
All right, I hear that.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you had your time in the NFL, had your stint there, and then you came back to Canada, and
Right.
you were with Hamilton, first in CFL Hamilton. What was that like, making that jump back to Canada, playing CFL?
It was cool. I mean, I was drafted by Hamilton, I think 12th or 13th overall, I believe. And so they had my rights. So I
Mm-hmm.
knew either way I was going to be playing pro ball somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to Hamilton, I believe in mid-September, sometime October of that year. And, I had a target on my back. Everybody's like, oh, Mr. NFL, this, that, the
Yeah.
third, woo, 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 woo. Look at him, look at him. And I was just like, whatever, man, let's just go play. Let's go play this game, give me my check, whatever, And so it was a cool experience. We had a good team that year. I think we had made the playoffs. The following year, we didn't do so well. But it was Hamilton was Hamilton. If you've been to Hamilton, you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a great place to play.
Yeah.
It's a different environment, a lot different than what I was used to.
Different than Toronto.
But I love them for the opportunity they gave me to play this game that I love so much.
So you went from Toronto, Nova Scotia, to
Yeah.
Atlanta, to Hamilton, and then you found your way back to Toronto playing with Argos, man. What was that like? Come back to the crib.
It was cool, man. I was trying to get out of Hamilton as fast as possible just because I was behind a good friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Joe Monfort in Hamilton, and I realized that the problem with my position, I was a defensive end, and defensive ends are typically American positions. So I was behind an American Hall of Famer.
Yeah, legend.
So it was really tough for me to even make any headway in that space. So I was just like, man, I got to get out of here. So I figured that Toronto would be a good landing spot for me, and I would, try to, fight my way into a roster spot there. Things didn't work out as I wanted to, and I ended up in Montreal and played some time in Montreal. And then, at some point I said, you know what? I love this game, but it's, the game, like I said, the game chose me. But sometimes what chooses you doesn't always love you the way you love the way you love it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like just like having a relationship with a girl, and you love her more than anything else, but she doesn't love you the same. And at some point, you just got to part ways, right? And so I had come to the decision that I had been spending so much time away from my family and away from my son that I needed to make a decision about what I wanted to do with my life. And I decided that I'm going to walk away from the game instead of the game walking away from me. And I said, I'm going to just raise this kid and make sure he has everything he needs to succeed in life, because I don't want to be that guy that, I come back from playing ball for however many years and like, oh, damn, you're 15 years old. I didn't even see you grow up.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was really important for me to be at every one of his games, whether it be soccer, basketball, football. And so I said, I made that conscious decision to say, you know what, let me hang up my cleats for now and focus on him.
Yeah, man, that's very admirable, because we're gonna transition right to it. You got your son right now playing for your former team, Montreal
Right.
Alouettes. What has that been like to have a career in football, be a pro athlete, play for a team, play for an organization, and then watch your son come up and follow in your footsteps, kind of? And I mean, he's on the other side of the ball, but watch him kind of come
Right.
up and playing in that same jersey that you were once in.
Yeah, it's an incredible feeling. I tell you what. I mean, I might have shed a couple tears on draft night when they called his name, because it's just a kind of a 360 experience whereby I went through it. I remember the way they did our draft was basically a telephone conference, and I was listening in a 2-bedroom house, a 3-bedroom house in Malvern. and with my mom on the phone, and and she started screaming. It was in the morning, I think, and she just, oh my God, I said your name. You know what I mean? So, but to see it now on TSN live and in
Yeah.
color, it was just a full circle moment, because now he was among all my friends and family and everybody who had just the whole entire village that had just helped to raise him to be the man that he is today. And to see that, all the work that and dedication that he put in to come to fruition was just an incredible feeling. And to this day, every day I look at him and I'm proud of what he's doing and what he's accomplished and what he's going to accomplish, because he's not done by any stretch of the imagination. He's got a lot to do. Even I told him, like when I and I always say, people always say, oh, he's following your footsteps. I said, no, he's not following my footsteps. I didn't make him to be me. I made him to be a better me, a more athletic me, a smarter me, a one that makes wise decisions, does what he needs to do to prolong his career, not to shorten it, right? So he's going to be a better version of myself. And I think that's what all parents, should try to strive for their kids to achieve, is to become a better version of themselves.
No, for sure. I mean, you look at his career. He was at Saint FX, right? He was at Saint FX.
Right.
So you look at his career there, and then you see him right now. He's making big splash plays right now.
Yeah. But people forget, man, he was a 4-time first team All-Canadian.
Yeah.
So that's an incredible feat, right? No, actually, yeah, 4-time All-Canadian, 3-time first team, right? And so it's an incredible feat for a kid that people called a late bloomer. He didn't get too many Division I looks, or it was kind of the opposite of me.
Yeah.
Right. I had all the Division I looks. He didn't have much. And we decided to go with Saint FX because, they were the best fit for him at the time. And we just, he just excelled right away off the bat. And it was a great decision for him to go there. Really had no regrets for that to happen. And, just happy to see where he's at right now and the trajectory he's following. And I think his trajectory is immeasurable, because I think there's so much things that people haven't tapped into yet. And then once they realize that he has the potential to be this great, football player on and off the field, I think they'll tap into it and really see it come to fruition.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you see the talent he has. Like he spent some time in Pittsburgh over there with in that. So he's definitely on his way, man, on his way. And I definitely you're proud of him.
Absolutely.
So we're kind of at the tail end of things. I got some quick hitters for you.
Sure.
All this quick 5. So basically, I ask you 5 questions and you just give me your answer. So first question, you got 5 dinner guests, dead or alive.
Wow, 5 dinner guests, dead or alive. My mom would want me to say Jesus Christ. So I'm gonna say JC. Who else? I'd love to sit down and talk to Malcolm X. He's one of my guys that I'd love to have a conversation with him and just pick his brain. Jay-Z obviously would be another one, just because he's such a transcendent figure, a mogul in all respects. Russell Simmons, that's 3. I'd like to, who else would I think? I got 2 more for you, right?
That's 4. You got Jesus Christ, you got Russell Simmons, you got Jay-Z, right. You got Malcolm X.
Right. Okay. So the last one would be, I would say, Muhammad Ali. Okay. Just Muhammad Ali, just because, he just had that air of confidence, and everything he said he would do, he did. Right. So
for sure. Okay. Your top 5 albums of all time.
Top 5 albums?
Yeah, all albums of all time. Yeah.
Good question.
Or if you can't do top 5 albums, you can do 5 albums you can listen to without no skips.
Yeah, I mean, Illmatic by Nas. Obviously, I feel like I was raised by that. Like my childhood, my teenage years. I feel like I was raised at the same time. Now I was going through whatever he's going through. I was going through the same thing, right? So definitely Nas, Illmatic, I think Ready to Die by Notorious B.I.G. Those were kind of, lifesavers and life changers. I think The Infamous by Mobb Deep,
Okay. Yeah.
as you can see, it's a lot of hip hop.
Yeah.
Another album that really changed my perspective in life was a gospel group by the name of BB and CC Winans.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So BB and CC, they were really big, growing up, because I was, my family was very heavy into the church, and they would, drag me along, and my aunt would always play this album, and I think the album was called Heaven. So that was a good album. So I got two more for you. I think Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder got me through a lot. And then I would say Bob Marley, Legend.
Legend. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. I like the group. All right. Top 5 players you've ever played with. So you can do a combination of NFL, CFL if you want. You could do NFL as a CFL as whatever you want. But top 5 players you've ever played with. It could be a college guys. Your top 5 list.
Oh man, that's tough, man. Like I'm gonna forget some people. I'm gonna say my roommate first of all. Not growing up, but I mean at Acadia, he was my roommate for like 3 or 4 years. His name was Jermaine Romans. He ended up going to Hamilton as well. Not the same year I went. I think the year after, or no, I think he went to Toronto first and then Hamilton. I'm not sure how it went, but he was an incredible athlete. I mean, we were chilling at Acadia. Me and him were like a dynamic duo. He was a DB. He was a lockdown corner and returner. He's like a Deion Sanders, flashy and everything. And I was just like, I was just the other guy doing all the grunt work in the trenches, So him. Who else would be a good guy? Obviously, Michael Vick was an incredible talent to be around. He was just a tremendous guy. Just to watch, just to see at such a young age how he dominated. God rest his soul. Is another linebacker I played with in Atlanta called John Theory. John Theory was an incredible guy. He was just a down to earth, gentleman. All he talked about was fishing and just doing good in the world, man. He was from Mississippi. He went to Alcorn State with Steve McNair, and he would just tell me great stories about Steve McNair. And then he didn't really look at me as like a lesser person. He would always look at me as an equal. So I'd always respect that about him. So John Theory is one of those guys. A guy that I never played with, but I played for and I played against, Michael Pinball Clemens. He's a gentleman that I really admire and I respect because, he'd always tell me, Karim, always give people more than they expect, and you'll never be disappointed, right? And so that always resonated with me, and he's just an incredible athlete on the field and an even better person off the field. Yeah. And then I think the last person I would say that, really not I would say surprised me, but really just, I could see that how far he was going to go in life because of what he did to me. And I was a pretty big guy in school, and I was strong, I was athletic, and he was one of the only guys that ever dunked on me. And this guy was Jamal McGlure. So Jamal McGlure, we used to play this church on Victoria Park back in the day. He'll remember this, and he just turned and doing chest to chest, and I had a chest full of sweat in my face. I was like, golly. And I was like, yeah, he's going to the league, man. This guy's ready. He's ready. So those would be my guys. I'm sure I'm missing out a few guys out there. And I'm definitely missing some guys, that I played with in Hamilton, that I learned a lot from. Davis Sanchez was another one that I played with in Montreal. He was a great corner and a guy who really treated me well when I was out there in Montreal too. So a lot of guys that I really respect and honored. I was always big on showing respect so I can get respect, right? And I think that's why even the work that I do with some of the youth in the streets and that kind of stuff really helps to galvanize my personality and makes it a bit more amicable for other people to come to get close to me and really, get in with me as a person.
All right. Last one I got for you, pretty fun. All right. You got 5 snaps in coverage. You're lined
Mm-hmm.
up against your son. 5 snaps.
Mm-hmm.
How many of them is he going to get a reception on?
None. He's not even getting up the line. I'm not trying to cover him in space, so I'm gonna hit his ass right off the
Right
line,
away.
right in his chin. He's too light. He's too light. You know what I'm saying? I always tell him, man, you put some weight on, man. I said, and not come across the middle on me. Nah, he would honestly, if I had to cover him, because so like in the CFL, I'd be walked out over number 3. I'd be outside linebacker. I'd give him 2 out of 5, maybe. You know what I'm saying? 2 out of 5.
You got some
Yeah.
speed, man. You got
He
yeah,
does
you
have
got
some
great hands,
speed.
man. You got great
He
hands.
does have some speed, but I mean, I got some speed too. I've been covering receivers. Like when I was at Acadia, I was always covering receivers. So I had missed it. Even at Atlanta, I had to cover some receivers sometimes too. So, but I like to put my hands on them. They used
Yeah.
to call me Inspector Gadget because my hands were so long, they just stretch out and just, yeah, I
Got the
could cover
momentum right
them
away.
and cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, yeah. Nah, man. I mean, well, that's the end of the episode, man. I want to say thank you. I appreciate you taking the time out and shop it up with me. Before we go, man, I want to give you the space to talk about what you're doing right now in the community, man. I know you've been a part of the community for a long time. I want to give you space to talk about what you've been doing in the community, man.
Oh man, I'm doing a lot, bro. It doesn't ever stop. I have a partnership right now with Toronto Community Housing Corporation, otherwise known as TCHC, one of the biggest housing corporations in North America. And right now we're providing a opportunity for 15 residents to be a part of a initiative to learn coding, to learn how to code, learn how to program video games and that kind of stuff, and artificial intelligence, and get into that whole realm. And my focus is really to get our Afro Caribbean, Afro Canadian, diaspora into that whole realm, because it's an emerging industry that requires a lot of man and woman power, and I'm just trying to really push it out there for them to get there. So it's a program called the Real Six. And we partnered with an agency called Stratagem and Unity, and then they're funding this program, and the program's worth about $10,000, and we're giving this for free to a number of youth who are interested in that. So it's been great. I have my own agency as well called Make It Happen. Make It Happen Incorporated is a multi-service agency that services youth, predominantly providing counseling, coaching, training, support, anything a youth may need at any time, at any given time. We try to provide for it. So really, right now we're focused on getting into the schools and doing conflict resolution workshops, anger management workshops, as well as just really redefining the role of young men, young Black men, and the role of young Black women in the whole African Canadian diaspora of Toronto, and making sure that they have their voices heard, making sure that they have the advocacy they need to succeed in whatever discipline that they're doing, whether it be sports, whether it be entertainment, whether it be the arts, whether it be business, finance, whatever the case may be. We just want to give them the utmost support. And so Make It Happen is really a multi-service agency. So within Make It Happen, I use a lot of the other programs within Make It Happen to fund different entities. So I also do an event planning entity of Make It Happen that does events, and usually in the summertime. So I'll plan events for older heads to kind of come together and have a good time, and use some of that money to help fund some of the programs in the fall and winter seasons. Right, run a tournament. We call it the Make It Happen Classic. That happens in the fall as well as in the winter. So we're looking to get that started again this year. What else am I doing? I'm also the head coach of a semi-pro football team out here called the GTA All Stars. We just actually came back from Alberta, so I got a pretty sore taste in my mouth after losing to the Cold Lake Fighter Jets a couple weeks ago in the national championship. So we gotta make amends with that next year and come out there bigger, better, and stronger, and make sure we fulfill our destiny and become national champions. So we are provincial champions, or conference champions. So we're the NFC champions, but we want that national championship ring next year. So we're coming for y'all again. What else am I doing? I think that's about it. Other than that, I try to stay busy, just try to read books, try to keep my knowledge up, and really, just try to make a difference in my life and other people's lives every day.
Yeah. No, that's dope, man. It's really admirable, man. Like being someone from the community and kind of giving back to the community the way that you have been doing and that you are doing. It's admirable, and I I've always been somebody to want to give the platform to people who are doing things like that, because I think it's needed, and like coding is one of those things that like that the tech industry is one of those things that is growing, like Silicon Valley. Like there's so much money and so much opportunity involved in that industry.
100%.
It's like you look in that industry and it's like you're seeing the same people in those industries. You're not seeing people of color in those industries. It's like, why not? So what you're doing, giving the youth opportunity to kind of get their foot in the door,
Right.
it's amazing, because that's not only changing their lives now, that's like down the road, because tech and coding is going to be like, you look at Instagram and TikTok and all these things that are kind of built around coding and technology and how the world is kind of thriving and being connected. It's like the opportunities are endless. So I commend you for that, man, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So I got also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention also, I'm going into my second season of a program called the Players Corner that we do here at local Rogers station. So I interview NFL, CFL athletes, entertainers, guys who are from, like we call the ends out here,
And
that have done big things in the world that people don't get to hear about. They don't get to,
yeah,
their stories don't get to be broadcasted. So I put them on a platform where they can, speak about their journey, kind of like what I'm doing here.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
we do it. We have a studio. We get it done on Rogers dime, and so it's just a really good thing. And so that's one of my initiatives as well. I do write for a magazine called Urbanology,
Technology, yeah.
and so so I do a lot of the hip hop and sports writing for that entity as well.
No, that's dope. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's it.
definitely. Yeah, I definitely see the episode with you had Dwayne Usario on there.
Yeah, I had Dwayne, cool guy, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Francis and Friends by way of the Chat Room Podcast. I want to say thank you again to Karim. I appreciate you jumping on, joining me, chopping it up with me. Your stories have been amazing, man. Like I'm a big football fan. Like I love football. So to hear you talk about Mike Vick and all that, like that's
Yeah,
amazing, for sure, for sure. So
we gotta do it again, man. We'll do it again soon. Maybe we'll do it with Karin and
yeah,
get Karin on here
yeah, you definitely get him on. Yeah,
and talk
I want
about
to
his
hear.
journey too.
I want to hear what he has to say, man, because your first answer was zero, so I know he's gonna have a lot to say about
Yeah, I'll stick with zero, but I'll give him 2 out of 5 just because he's young.
2 out of 5. Yeah.
Yeah, two.
Sounds good. All right, man. So I appreciate you joining with me, and it's been another episode of Francis and Friends podcast by way of Chat Room Podcast, and we're out of here, man.
All right, then. God bless.
Yes, sir.